Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole and I have gotten caught up in like the mid-year videos that are going around on BookTube. So people are at the point where they're sharing their mid-year freakout tag. They're sharing, books to read for the summer, books that they want you to read for the summer, books that they're anticipating reading for the summer, for the end of the year, books that are being released that they want to read soon and all the things. And I just wanted to get in on the hype. I don't know. I was feeling inspired. That's another way of saying it. But basically, I decided that I wanted to share something like that, books that you could read that I plan on reading, but I didn't want to veer off course from my reading plans or my monthly TBR. I can do that pretty well all on my own. And so what I decided to do today was to do an update of my reading plans and how those are going, but just one specific part of them. And that is my most anticipated reads for 2025. So I'm going to look at the past, talk about what's happened in the present, and what's going on in the future. And I feel like this is like a mid-year check-in, plus a book haul without hauling any books, and a, hey, these are books that you should read this summer or read between now and the end of the year if you want to be able to talk about them with me. All right, so the first thing that we are going to discuss is my original 25 and 2025 list. Now, I'm just going to link that video if you want to go back and see everything that is on that list. I felt like it would be kind of repetitive to repeat it here. But I do want to share with you the books that I have already read off that list and how I've been doing on that list as a whole based on how the reading has gone so far. Thus far, as of June, I have read and finished 11 of the books off of my list, and I organized mine A through Z. I skipped the letter O so that I could just have 25 books for 2025. And these are the 11 that I read. And let's talk about my reading experience of these 11 books. These are not necessarily books that I thought would be 5-star reads, but of course, if you say you're really anticipating reading it, that's usually the hope. I will indicate for you with an X the books that I DNF'd. And so, yeah, there were a surprising number for me. I would have hoped that none of these books would have been DNF'd. All right, and then that gets me into my 3-star reads. I unfortunately had quite a few 3-star reads. One of them was Black Empire, also The Eighth Life, and Under the Greenwood Tree. And I've talked about all of these in my weekly reading wrap-ups. They were all okay for very different reasons, so I will leave it up to past video me to explain exactly why I gave those 3 stars. And I'm realizing that I forgot to talk about A Room with a View. That was also a 3-star read for me, so I actually had 4 3-star reads. But that leaves me with just a few other books on here. Larissa, I am still in the middle of reading, so I don't know how that's going to go. I'm thinking it's probably going to end up as a 4-star, but I still have more than half a year of reading it left to go. The other 4-star read that I had is Don Quixote. This is a book that it's actually really hard for me to judge what my rating on it should be. Long story short, I really enjoy it. I just don't know that I'm going to reread it in its entirety that many more times in my life. So that'll probably keep it somewhere in the 4-star range for me. My 5-star reads were Invisible Man and XX, which means so far this year I've only had 2 5-star reads off this list, which just seems kind of ridiculous. The last time I made this list, I made it based on what I was anticipating wanting to read. I now want to make this list based on what I know I will probably enjoy. To set up the future list, or the list that I'm going to use from now to the end of the year, I've gone through all my books, and for each of the letters that I haven't read a book for yet, I went and looked at my shelves and was honest with myself and said, what do I really think I would want to read until the end of the year? And I pulled all those books, and then I compared them to the old list and chose one of those 2 books if they were different. In some cases, I ended up choosing the same book again. So I'm going to share with you the new list. So if you find that your book taste is similar to mine, or you see a lot of books on this list, know that I will be talking about these books between now and the beginning of the year at some point, hopefully. I am changing out the book that I had for the letter A, and that is now going to be replaced by Adulthood Rites. This is by Octavia E. Butler. It is the 2nd book in Lilith's Brood series. I just last month read Dawn by Octavia E. Butler, or this month, or what month am I in? Anyway, I recently read it, and I really enjoyed that, and I really want to continue this series. The next book on my list is another series, interestingly enough, and it's also a book that is replacing a book off the previous list, and this is for the letter F, and I am switching in the Forsyte saga. This is the next book that I want to read, partially because there are a lot of topics in here, including multi-generational families and family dramas and stories and relationships that I really find myself drawn to in narratives. I was talking about this book at one point, and I had quite a few viewers who seemed to have similar tastes to me say that this was a really good book series. I know it doesn't seem like it's a series. No, this is not all one book. I think there are the first 3 books in the series in here, and the 3 books together are usually referred to as the Forsyte Saga because it is following the Forsyte family. And I didn't realize that it was a series. I always thought it was just one long book that had maybe been broken up into volumes. So I think that's really interesting. I don't know how far I will go into the series. I will likely read the first 3 books in here, and I don't know that I'm going to commit to reading all 3 of the first books in this one year, but I definitely want to start it and give it a try and see if it's a series that I want to continue. For the letter G, I switched out one Bildungsroman for another, and if you don't know what that word means, it is in English basically the idea of a coming of age story, and the one I switched it to is Great Expectations. And yes, this is on my TBR for July, and yes, that is intentional. Kind of, sort of. I really want to read this before the year's over. I haven't read Charles Dickens in what feels like forever. It's probably really only been a month or 2. I'm looking forward to reading another work of his. I'm hoping it will be this one, partially because of the next book on the list. And that book is Havisham by Ronald. This is a book that is basically a alternate telling, retelling, however you want to use that word, of this classic. And I don't want to say much about it, but this book is about a character in this book. And if you've read Great Expectations, you know who. And I believe this is not necessarily supposed to retell the story of Great Expectations, but I think it's supposed to be the backstory of the person in Great Expectations, which I'm really fascinated by because I was always fascinated by that character in Great Expectations. And I guess I could tell you what Great Expectations is about. So Great Expectations is about a young orphaned boy named Pip, and he is being raised by his sister, and he is definitely living a life of sort of hard knocks. Life is very difficult. His sister is very cruel, and he just can't wait to grow up and get out and experience something else in life. And this story follows him along as he does just that. And yeah, there are some great expectations laid out for him. And I have read this a ton for some reason in school, and I can't wait to read it for the first time on my own. The letter J is also a book that has been replaced, and I'm slotting in The Jungle. This is the uncensored original edition, which has stuff in it that was cut by the publishers for being too grotesque and over the top, is my understanding. So this is a version of the book written as Upton Sinclair always intended it to be. The Jungle covers the sort of literal mess that industrialization of the food processing system made in the US, and it's going to be a horror story. For the letter K, I am putting in Kokoro. This was actually on my anticipated list last year, and I don't really remember why I didn't put it on this year, but I've become more interested in reading this book because I've read a lot of first-person narratives this year, and I have just been really interested with that narrative technique and with the narrative voice, and I know that this is a first-person narrator story, and it talks about a young man and his time and relationship with someone that he refers to as sensei. And that's pretty much all I know about this story. That and that the book Lonely Castle in the Mirror is inspired or sort of worked off of in some way this book. So it's also part of a book project very loosely. For the letter L, I am adding Little Dorrit because you can't have too much Charles Dickens. I don't know how likely this is to get on my TBR this year. It's pretty thick. But again, like, I want to read more Charles Dickens. I probably should have put a Wilkie Collins on instead of another Charles Dickens, but oh well, too little, too late. Little Dorrit is definitely one of the next Charles Dickens books that I hope to get to. I'm hoping maybe sometime this winter. I just feel like it would be a good wintertime story, not for any good reason that I know. I have not read the book for the letter N yet, and I forgot to bring it over here, but it is Native Son. That was on the original list, and that is staying the same. So for O, I'm going to put on Of Human Bondage, again, because this fits into a topic and theme that I like in my books, which is coming of age. I didn't put Queen Margot on the list because this is a book that I always think is in the middle of a series I haven't started yet. And I finally reminded myself that no, it is the first book in a series. And something that I was reading recently also mentioned how if you liked The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas, this was one of the other books, including The Three Musketeers, that was going to have the most similar feel in terms of the adventure of that story and writing style. So that made me go, oh my gosh, why am I putting this off? Let me get to Alexandre Dumas and Queen Margot sooner. I have decided to keep the letter S the same, and so I still plan on reading The Sorrows of Young Werther. This was the original book on the list, and I still want to get to this, and I really need to remember that I have this list because I even had a viewer who read this earlier this year and confirmed that it really is as good and interesting as I think it's going to be. It's another book that I'm thinking of reading during Victober or at least October. It's not a Victorian classic, I don't believe, but it does have those Victorian classic Gothic vibes in a fantasy setting, and who doesn't like that idea? For the letter W, I have Wives and Daughters. This is the book by her that pretty much everybody seems to love who reads it, or at least everybody who likes her at all. So we'll see how that goes. I'm hoping it's going to work out. And then finally, for my Y pick is Year of Wonders. This was a book that I started, and you can see on the front maybe that I wrote autumn because I started it, I think, in late winter, early spring, and it just had such autumn vibes at the beginning that I was like, I really need to wait and read this in fall. And hopefully I will get two of them on each month. We'll see. I don't know. I know in July I have one of them on my TBR. I don't know if I'll be able to get a second one on that TBR because my July TBR is insane. So like and subscribe and click the notifications so you get the bells. And then that way, you know, when I release my end of the year video or release the video at the beginning of next year, you'll be able to see how the rest of the year went with all these reads. So let me know if you plan in advance and have already figured out books for the rest of the summer, books for the rest of the year, or how your anticipated reads are going. And I will talk to you next time.